everyone. Welcome to Fully Book Filipino Reads Fest. This afternoon, we are putting the spotlight to the author of Pan de Sal Saves the Day, a book that won first prize in the Carlos Palanca Memorial Awards for Literature. Before we begin, we would just like to remind everyone that Fully Book is a safe space, so please keep our comments respectful and non-discriminatory at all times. Our guest for today is a feature writer, food writer, and author of children's books. She is a journalism graduate of St. Teresa's College in Quezon City, a scholar at the International Institute of Journalism in Berlin, and she studied at Syracuse University and the Culinary Institute of America in New York. Aside from winning first prize in the Carlos Palanca Memorial Awards for Literature, her other awards also include an Outstanding Journalism Award from the Australian-New Zealand Chamber of Commerce and a National Book Award from the Manila Critics Circle. Today, she will talk about her children's book, Pan de Sal Saves the Day. Everyone would like to welcome Ms. Norma Olizon-Chikiamco. Hi, Ms. Norma.
Hello, hi, Renz. How are you?
Yes, before we start, I would just like to ask you, how are you holding up these strange times?
Well, like everybody else, I'm wondering, where is this, pandemic going? We've had it for over a year and there seems to be no end to it. So I'm really quite anxious about it. But on the other hand, I've also been keeping busy because I have my book projects and I have to do household chores. I cook every day. And my husband and I keep in touch with our daughters who both live overseas. So overall, it's been okay. It's been all right. I'm surviving like everybody else.
Yeah, staying in our home, read books, right?
Yes, sheltering at home. So
yes. So let's start. So for everyone who doesn't know, Miss Norma has an upcoming activity book titled Pan de Sal Saves the Day. So Miss Norma, can you tell us a little bit about your book?
All right. The Pan de Sal Saves the Day is about a little girl named, of all things, Pan de Sal. So, of course, she hates her name. She hates the way she looks. She envies her classmates. And among her classmates, wasn't exactly the glamorous type. So she had sort of like, she was very quiet. She just kept to herself. But she had one talent, and that was her voice. And she longed to join the Glee Club, but she was too shy to audition. So one day, all of a sudden, she's caught in the limelight. Whereupon she has to, she suddenly sings for her classmates. And from there, the teacher, what a wonderful singing voice she has, offers to accompany her to her audition, so she's able to fulfill her dreams. So, and this is a lot also about Filipino culture because it's about the games like sipa, and then the food like adobo, and she sings Filipino folk songs for her friends.
So to give everyone a sneak peek of Pan de Sal Saves the Day, would you mind reading to us a few pages from your book?
All right, so I will read an excerpt about when they go to a, the class goes to a nature park. And that was where Pan de Sal suddenly is caught in the limelight. All right, so this is the book. This is the book. Sorry. Anyway, okay, I'm reading from the book. One day, the class went on a field trip with their teacher, Miss Flores. The school driver, Mang Baking, drove them to a nature park where they could learn all about trees, flowers, and insects. There, they saw all kinds of fruit trees like mango and star apple, flowering plants like rosal and sampaguita, as well as colorful dragonflies, butterflies, ladybugs, and grasshoppers. Pan de Sal knew most of these creatures because they were plentiful in the fields where she and her brothers played on weekends. Eat, Croissant shrieked when a wriggling insect landed on her. Don't be afraid, Pan de Sal said. It's only a dragonfly. Look, I can even catch it, and it won't bite. Pan de Sal closed her thumb and forefinger on the dragonfly's wings and held it up for Croissant to see. Gross, Croissant said as she looked away. But by this time, Superbread and Donut had joined them and were fascinated by the dragonfly. Wow, you're brave, said Superbread. And Pandesal felt strangely proud of herself, though it was really no big deal. Why, one time she had even fought a whole army of dragonflies, which she kept in a bottle before setting them free. When it was time for lunch, they all sat down on the picnic grounds and opened their lunch boxes. Out came the hamburgers and French fries, the spaghetti, fried chicken, and pizza, all neatly wrapped in aluminum foil. Croissant had a cheese souffle, while Breadstick brought fettuccine with cream sauce. Suddenly, Pantisal felt ashamed of her round paper bag. In it, she had rice, fish broiled in tomatoes and onions, and chicken adobo, all wrapped in banana leaves. Her mother had made sure Pandesal brought plenty of food so she could share them with her classmates, and her brothers had tucked in some bananas which they had picked from the tree in their backyard. Pandesal loved this food, but compared to those of her classmates, the rice and the fish and the adobo and the bananas suddenly looked so humble. Aren't you going to eat? Miss Flores asked Pandesal. I forgot my baon, she lied. Oh, but you must eat or you'll go hungry. Here, have some of my barbecue. Miss Flores gave her slices of charcoal broiled pork on bamboo skewers. So that's an excerpt from the book. So after that, things happen quickly, and Pandesal finds herself in the limelight, and later on, she sings for her classmates.
Okay, thank you for telling us a heartwarming story. So for those who want to know what happens next, Pandesal Saves the Day, the storybook, can be purchased at Fully Book Online, now currently on a restock order. While Pandesal Saves the Day, the activity book, is currently on a pre-order at Fully Book Online as well.
Yes,
Okay.
activity book, which is based on the story. And this activity book has plenty of wonderful puzzles. They have that they can solve. They can draw, they can color the houses of croissant, muffin, and superbread. They can draw the house of Pandesal and color it. And then they can help Pandesal find her way to school. There is uh, a trek to school, a maze that they have to solve to find the school for Pandesal. And there's crossword puzzle. And very important, we have a piano arrangement made by the renowned pianist Raul Sunico. It's an arrangement of Leron Leron Sinta, which readers can play on the piano. And the lyrics are here with English translations made by Raul Sunico. So they can sing along. They can play the piano in this folk song.
That's so amazing. I'm sure children would love your activity. Okay. So let's talk about your book. So what sparked the idea behind this book, Pandesal Saves the Day?
Well, actually, it's funny because this book is the outcome of a botched project. One time, there was this group that asked me to do a brochure on, of all things, of all places, Boracay, the beach resort.
Oh.
So they gave me materials, where I can gather materials for the brochure. And one of the materials they gave me was about a bakery by the beach that sold breads like croissant, donut, and all the other all kinds of bread. I think there was muffin, there was even bagel, all kinds of sophisticated bread. And there was no pandesal in the bakery. So I asked myself, how would pandesal feel beside all of these all of these
Right.
foreign. Yeah, because Pan de Sal is a humble bread. It's very simple. How would she feel beside all this other bread? Well, the idea kept swirling in my head. But afterwards, this group that asked me to do the brochure suddenly vanished. I never heard from them again. I never got paid for the project. So, but even if they left, the idea remained with me. And I kept thinking, sometimes I'd wake up and this is on my mind. How is Pandesal feeling? How will Pandesal deal with all this other bread? So finally, one morning, I remember it was a Sunday morning, I sat down and wrote the story. And as soon as I started, the story practically wrote itself. The events came naturally, and so there you have it. Pandesal
Okay.
saves.
Saves the day. Okay. So I've also read a few pages of the book, and that there was something that I've noticed, that the characters in the story were named after breads.
Yeah.
So I just want to ask, why are the characters in the story named after different kinds of bread? They could be named after people, but they're named after breads.
Yes, but that is in keeping with Pandesal because she's Pandesal. So her friends were also named after different kinds of bread. But she's the only one who's Filipino. The breadstick, donut, muffin, they're all foreign types of bread.
Okay. So is Pan de Sal story based on your personal childhood experience, or is it from someone close you know?
Well, a lot of it is based on my own childhood experience. For instance, playing sipa, sipa. When I
Yes,
was
yes, I know.
growing up, yeah, when I was growing up, we played sipa a lot. Our games, they were, at that time, were just simple. We didn't have computers. There were only very few television programs. So we would play sipa, patintero, pico, things like that.
Yes, the classic Filipino games.
Yeah, so I drew on that experience to write about sipa. And then the thing also about catching dragonflies. I grew up in a house that had a large garden. And on the weekends, my siblings and I, one of our games was to catch dragonflies, because there were a lot of dragonflies then, really, really plenty. So we would catch dragonflies, and when they were plenty, we would put them in a jar and punch holes on the cover of the jar so they could breathe. And when we have plenty enough in the jar, we would open the jar and release them. And it would be a burst of colors in the air.
Oh,
Because the dragonflies were so colorful. There was blue, green, lilac, red, all kinds of colors. So it was beautiful. Yeah. And so I
uh,
had that experience to for Pandesal.
now we rarely see dragonflies these days,
That's true. That's true. You have to go maybe to the countryside.
or provinces.
Yeah, the provinces. Yeah.
Okay, next question. So, as someone who has authored lifestyle books, specifically cookbooks before, what made you
Yes.
decide to write a children's book?
Well, as I said, that idea of pandesal kept swirling in my head. So, but I actually started out as a newspaper reporter. So I was used to writing about events, about facts, about data. When I started writing about pandesal, it was so liberating because I didn't have to base it on anyone's what other people said. It was just my imagination.
Yes.
So I found it really a very pleasant change. So from there on, I wrote after Pandesal, I wrote other books for children. Like I have a recipe book for children, and
Oh,
yeah. But unfortunately, I think it's out of print now. And I have a book about the rice book for children, coconut book for children. Uh, and I have other children's books coming soon. So
okay. Do you
yeah,
remember the first story that you have ever written? Would you mind sharing with us?
it's Pandesal Saves the Day. That's the
Oh,
first.
it's Pan de Sal Saves a Day.
Yeah,
I see.
that's why it was such a change. But it was also very. I found it so. exhilarating, so different. So yeah, yeah. So I continued on. Yeah, I have other stories that I haven't published yet.
Uh,
Yeah.
as an author, what's your writing ritual?
Writing ritual. Well, I wish I could say that I am very disciplined about it, like other writers. But mostly I just go by how I feel, all the other things I have to do during the day. I have chores also at home. So, and then as somebody said, writers are the greatest procrastinators. When it's time for them to write, they will think, oh, I have to clean my room. Oh, I have to fix this. And then they watch TV, they read newspapers, they'd even read, like in my case, they'd even read the back of a cereal box, anything to, to keep them from starting to write. And then they realize, oh my God, it's 5 o'clock and my deadline is at 6 o'clock. So, that's how a writer's life, a lot of it is
Yeah,
postponing to write because sometimes you don't know how to start. So you just sort of like play around, think, you read other people's books to get ideas, things like that. But while I do that, while I postpone writing, when I have a deadline, I know I have to write. I have to miss. I cannot miss my deadline because as a newspaper reporter, I was trained that at the end of the day, you have to submit your news report, whether or not you're ready. If you miss your news report, you're gonna hear a lot from the news desk and the editor. So when there's a deadline, I am sure to meet it. But
you have
when
to meet the deadline.
Yeah, but when it's, something that's, still a long way due, that, sort of postpone writing it, procrastinating, inventing other things in your mind other than what you're supposed to write.
I
Yeah.
see.
Mhm.
Okay, so what's the best thing about being a Filipino writer?
Well, I would think the best thing is that we have a rich culture that we can draw on. We have an interesting history, if that's what we can call it, interesting history. Full of events, full of battles, full of all sorts of things. And then there are all of these backstories that we can cultivate and draw on when we write stories. There's also family life. There's no other family like life like the Filipino family life. It's
Yes, I agree.
it's a wonderful and funny life, loving and sometimes warm, but sometimes also a little bit crazy. So that's a very rich source of material that we can draw on as writers.
Okay. Since we're celebrating Filipino Reads Fest, what does it mean to be a Filipino author these days? And what are the challenges that you have faced as a writer?
Well, one of the challenges really is finding a publisher. A publisher that would really pay attention to your book and one who will nurture the book, help you, encourage you from beginning to end, from the moment you start writing or submitting the story and the printing process, and then help to market it, distribute it, because that's the important thing, when you have a book, it has to be distributed, marketed. So that's a challenge. That's a big challenge for Filipino
Yes,
writers.
especially if you're a new author.
Yes, that's right. That's right. You have to find a publisher who's sympathetic, empathetic to your project, to the book that you're. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so being a winner of the Carlos Palanca Memorial Award for this book, Pan de Sal Saves. So do
Mhm.
you have any message or tips for aspiring children's book writers?
I would say, as Nike would say, just do it. You know, just sit down and write. Like my book, Pan de Sal Saves the Day, I was problematic. How do I approach this? What kind of, story will it be other than Pandesal being sort of feeling inferior? What kind of, how will the story move? None of the things, none of the events occurred to me until I sat down and wrote it. Writing triggers something in your brain. So you just sit down and write, even if you're not ready, you think you don't know how you will do it, but just write. That's one. Second thing is read. Read a lot. Read poetry, read history, read children's books, all kinds of things, because this is what will inspire you, and you will imbibe the spirit and the talents of other writers, especially the great writers. So that is one advice I would give. Read a lot and write, whether you think you're ready or not. Just do it, like Nike would say.
Yes, and have confidence, like
Yes.
Pan de Sal.
And this other thing is what they say, the essence of good writing is rewriting. You know, unless you're Truman Capote, who, who could write on first draft, you never really submit a first draft. You have to, there are always ways that you can improve whatever you wrote. You know, maybe tighten sentences, change an adjective, be more specific about something. So after writing, rewriting is just as important.
Okay. So thank you for answering our questions and the inspiring message to the audience. So before we end the event, so we would just like to play a little game. So we prepared a couple of questions for you. So it's just a simple fast talk. So no need to think about the questions too hard, and just say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
So on what's the best pair with Pan de Sal? So coffee or tea?
I am a tea drinker, but I would say for Pan de Sal coffee.
Coffee.
How it
Yes.
matches more. But I would also recommend hot chocolate,
Hot
especially
chocolate.
a cup of hot chocolate made with our native cacao, and perhaps some milk and sweetened with muscovado sugar. That will go well with Pan de Sal.
Okay. On palaman, egg and cheese or egg and ham?
I think maybe butter and bread, butter and sugar. When I was growing up, and sometimes some afternoons, our yayas would come to us and ask, "Oh, what palaman do you like?" And some of my siblings would say mayonnaise and sugar, or sandwich spread and sugar.
Mayonnaise and sugar.
That was, how life was before. Cheese, maybe cheese whiz, but I would always like just plain butter with a sprinkling of sugar.
Yes. Okay. So on reading, do you prefer paperback or hardcover?
A hardcover is beautiful to see, but for practical purposes, I would prefer paperback, because for one thing,
Paperback.
hardcover is by the name itself, it's thick and heavy to carry around, especially when you're traveling. On the other hand, paperback would be more handy, easier to tote around, and to read. Yeah, especially when you're reading on the plane or reading when you're trying to fall asleep. I would choose paperback.
Paper. Okay. So next question is bookmark or dog ear? Which one would you prefer?
Well, I love bookmarks. There's so many beautiful bookmarks you can buy with made with all kinds of material, fabric, paper, metal. But I always buy bookmarks. I always lose them. They fall.
Oh, I think every bookworm can relate.
Yeah, so I do. Much as I don't want to, dog ears. But I think a book that has dog ears and that has plenty of highlighted passages is much better than a book that is very clean, very neat, but unread. It is unread. So a book that has dog ears with underlined passages, I think that's the kind of book I'd go for. Yeah.
Okay. So do you prefer reading all day or writing all day?
I wish I could do both. So I wish I could do reading all day, but I don't have the luxury of reading all day. Somehow I always find that I have deadlines to meet. I have something to write, never ending, that's a writer's life. So I divide my time, reading part of the time and writing.
Writing. Okay. So read one book at a time or read multiple books at the same time?
Well, since I have the Kindle, I can read 2 or 3 books at the same time.
At the same time.
And sometimes when there's a book that is especially, there are some beautiful passages, I highlight it on Kindle and I contemplate it. I stop and meditate on it and admire the writer, admire the prose, So yeah, things like that.
Okay. So name us the top 3 books that you always recommend.
Uh, I get ideas of which books to read from friends and also from famous people on the internet. You browse through it, and then sometimes you come across like Bill Gates. He recommends the book A Gentleman in Moscow, which
Gentlemen.
I hurriedly downloaded from Amazon.com. It's a beautiful book, so I would recommend. And it's about this Russian nobleman who was put on house arrest by the Bolsheviks. And when you come to think of it, our situation now, lockdown, it's like we're all on house arrest. So that book is especially relevant now. The way the Count lived on his house arrest, it's admirable. He made the most of it. So I think we can draw inspiration from that, also make the most of our lockdown. I also like this book on Russian mythology written by Catherine Arden. It's a trilogy. She writes so beautifully. Such beautiful prose. I really admire it. So it's a trilogy. So beautiful, beautiful book. And then I also read biographies of people I admire. For instance, a biography of Fred Rogers, the one of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He is such a talented, such a loving and unique individual. So I love that. Since I love music, I read memoirs of musicians like Arthur Rubinstein and Van Cliburn. And I read recently the letters of Chopin, which you will see a different kind of Chopin. He was such a loving friend and a loving brother to his sister. So, and things like that. So you learn more about the people you admire when you read their memoirs or their biographies.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And lastly, the fully book signature question. Do you judge a book by its cover?
I know it says that do not judge a book by its cover, but then, of course, when you see a book and on the cover it screams crime, terror, horror, romance, then you have an idea already what you will encounter when you
Yes.
book. When you turn to the back page, usually you would have some of the book, and you would have endorsements from other writers or from some people. So then from the cover, both front and back cover, you can tell more or less what kind of book it is. And from there you can judge if you would like the book or not read the book. So yeah, you can sort of judge a book by its cover. Not entirely, but somewhat. You have an idea. Yeah. But for people, of course, it's different. you know. Yeah, maybe that saying is not literally for books, but for people, you see sometimes people that they look certain way, but they're actually different. So yeah.
Okay, that's it. So thank you so much, Miss Norma, for your generous time in joining us today, and to the audience who joined our live session. So don't forget to grab your copy of Pan de Sal Saves a Day, both the storybook and the activity book at fullybookedonline.com. So just, yes.
Can you please tell them how they can pre-order books right now already?
Yes. The activity book is currently on a pre-order, while the storybook is currently on a restock order at www.fullybookedonline.com. So just kindly check the collection link in the comment section, and you will see the books along with the other books highlighted for Filipino Reads Best.
Okay.
So that's it.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you again, Miss Norma, and everyone who joined us today. So stay safe, everyone, and keep on reading.
Thank you.